Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan on the Boom Bust channel. I'm your host, Terry, and today we are talking about our Week 3 loss versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to talk about this before I party too much and lose my mind because we got absolutely destroyed here. And full disclosure, obviously, I'm doing this before we even get to the fourth quarter. Before we got to the fourth quarter, they got backup quarterback in because it's 41-0. So I'm going to just go ahead and do this because there's not a lot of recap to do in terms of this game. If you are a Bears fan that thought I might bet the Bears to do an upset or I might bet the Bears to cover, I have my strong condolences for you because that was just absolutely wishful thinking. Now, on the other hand, I can say that myself, I was like, I should bet the Chiefs to win by 20 points and make some money. And I did it. And I really wish I did. But hey, that's hindsight. That's betting. But when we're talking about the game, I think the question today is it the roster or is it the coaches? Because that's what it comes down to. I approach the game from an objective point of view. I approach it as a coach. And so there's a lot of back and forth, particularly about Justin Fields. That's the whole conversation in the sports media about quarterbacks. If you listen to me, I don't believe it's a passing league like the media tells you. I don't believe what Justin Fields said this week was the biggest thing as the media tells you. All that. I do think the quarterback is the most important position, but there is so much context behind that it can be different from team to team. But some people write it off as a quarterback conversation. I don't think that's necessarily the case. So I do think the conversation is about the roster versus the coaches, because everybody's going to want to ask me about Justin Fields. What do you think about Fields? I'll talk about that, but we're not going to go there necessarily specifically. So the team goes against the defending Super Bowl champs, and we do exactly what we think we are going to do. And the injuries don't matter. Please don't insult anybody's intelligence by saying that Eddie Jackson's out. Eddie Jackson would not have changed anything. Braxton Jones is out. Would not have changed anything. Nate Davis is out. Would not change. Nate Davis got beat like a drum in week 1. So please don't insult anybody's intelligence about that. So if you've been listening to me, all this sounds familiar, but if you're new, do not insult our intelligence as better Bears fans by trying to bring up injuries. So we look at this game, we look at the season, we ask the question, again, is it the roster, is it the coaching? And there's other option like me, you know how I am, it could be both. So I want to walk through that because I'm trying to project. A lot of Bears want to know about the right now, XYZ. And as I tell you, like, if you don't know football, if you don't know how it goes, you can't project. And projecting is the real value, in my opinion. So, projecting to the rest of the season, somebody asked me, do I think we could have 2 top 10 picks or something along those lines? Maybe it was number 1 and number 2. I don't know about number 1, number 2, but it is very possible our pick as the Chicago Bears could be top 5. I have to look at the roster, and forgive me for that. I pull up the roster before, but I remember talking about in the offseason, our roster or our schedule. I keep saying roster, my bad. Our schedule isn't that terrible, but it's going to depend on how we look. And so when you talk about the schedule, we have shown so far to be worse off in all facets than we might have thought. And it's not just the execution on the field, It's the off the field, the questions about coaching, the drama with Allen Williams and all this other stuff, and Justin Fields getting frustrated. All that stuff has been way worse than we might have anticipated because of the losing. When, as they say, winning cures everything. On the opposite end, losing brings up all the questions. So we got a lot of questions to talk about. We probably look worse than we thought. So when we talk about our pick, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but the way we are playing, the way our roster is constructed, unless we do some crazy moves, but this ain't basketball. This ain't the Lakers reshaping their roster right before the trade deadline. I just don't see us on a different trajectory. I'm not saying we're going to lose every game, but I don't see many games where we're going to be favored, because I put this in the community, and I meant to say this up top. I'm not fully invested in growing the channel and all that, but I will say subscribe, click the notification bell so you can stay tuned. Mainly because in the community, I talk a lot about football on game day. That's where I try to go to it. If I'm at home, that's where I'm going to talk about it at. I'm going to go to the community, I'm going to type my thoughts out. If I'm outside of that, I might not get to it as much, but it just depends on the week. I say all that to say I talked about the D-line versus the O-line. The D-line and O-line is the question of the next 5 years. Everybody thinks it's quarterback. Everybody thinks it's the passing game. That's not true. It is the O-line and the D-line. So you look at us. O-line, very shaky. As a starting unit, we don't even know. Shaky. But then we lose 2 starters, 3 actually, because Nate Davis I don't think is a big thing, but at the same time he's a starter, so we lose 3 starters. That is already giving you a bad spot. Then you talk about the D-line. I've talked about for years, and even with this group, we don't have pass rush juice. So when the O-line and D-line look like that, games can get very ugly like it did today. And so that's something that I've talked about for a while, and I think that's where the conversation starts. A lot of people want to say Justin Fields just doesn't have time, so it's all the O-line's fault. It's absolutely not true. I've been covering this. This is my 3rd season, or at least with Justin Fields. If you look at it, Justin Fields has had time, and he's had play calls dialed up for him to make a big play, and he didn't. He's had times where he had no pass protection, no time to make a play. He couldn't do it. He's had times when there was bad play calling, bad play design. He didn't make a play. So all of those are true. It's all mixed in there together. But still, like, again, when I talk about the O-line and D-line, that's where we get to. Because I don't consider the Chiefs a great D-line. I could go through every person. I'm not going to. Obviously, everybody's going to look at Chris Jones. Karlaftis from Purdue. He's been better than I thought early on because, again, but I say this every time with the draft, you can change your body type and all that. Running backs is usually that's the biggest thing, but D-line, that's true too. He didn't go bigger, he went smaller, and he continued with his motor, but he added a quicker frame, and he's been doing well. But, even outside of that, and it's not to discredit these guys. I know them, but I'm not going to name everybody. But they're active, but they're not great D-line. But with our offensive line, the way it is, especially missing these starters, yeah, they absolutely got after us. And that's never going to be a great thing. So then, against Pat Mahomes, who I think is the epitome, and I mention this, I mention this sometimes. I play Madden. Madden's crazy this year. I love it. It's a great game this year, but all Madden is way too OP. Like, Dak Prescott is God tier, and Dak Prescott's not the best quarterback. Dak Prescott is God tier. He's making throws in less than 2 seconds. And so I think some people think of the NFL like that. It's not like that. Pat Mahomes is the top. He's best. But even him with pressure is going to make mistakes. Even him with time is going to make mistakes. But, you know, some people play Madden fantasy and that's all they see. And they think like, oh, man, this is absolutely great. Like, Mahomes is going to make split decisions. That's not the truth. The truth is, against the Bears with no defensive line pressure, you get Jordan Love, who isn't great. It hasn't shown to be great, but that first week he had so much time, he looked great. And so when you give Mahomes enough time, oh, come on now. Stop it. I mean, you get a game like this 41-0 when honestly the Chiefs offense hasn't been at the top of their peak. And that's O-line, D-line. That's the name of the game. So for the next 3 years, trust me, that's going to become the conversation. Everybody wants to make it quarterbacks. Betting wise, social media wise, sports media wise, they want to make it quarterbacks, but the topic is O-line, D-line. And the D-line has vastly surpassed the O-line. And so good offensive lines are really hard to find. So there's that. And then we talk about, again, defense and all that. So let me go backwards because we're talking about roster versus coaching. The Bears put out one of the worst rosters last year. And I don't say that in 23 like, oh yeah, that was a bad roster. No, I said that before the season. You can look at it. Now, many people are going to deny it, but Bears fans were all over it. Oh, we got, I don't even remember, Muhammad. He played with the Colts. Eberflus knows him. He's high motor. He's great. Not on the team. Didn't do nothing. I don't even remember who was our other DN after we traded Robert Quinn. And then Justin Jones, I would give him a pass. I think he's pretty good. But the rest of the D-line, it's just like, it's not a lot of talent there. It's not a lot of juice. And then the receivers, I like Mooney, but you had nothing outside of Mooney. EQ St. Brown, we didn't know exactly what he could be. You had Pringle. You had people telling me all types of things about these receivers. I'm like, this is a bottom of the league receiver group. And that's what it turned out to be. You bring in Claypool. I told you that trade was terrible. Why would you bring in him for that capital? He didn't show much in Pittsburgh. He gets here. Again, another Notre Dame guy closer to home or Chicago in the area. I know he's not from here, but where he went to school, he showed no interest. And he might turn around, whatever, but it just was not a deal that I would have made. So you do not have a receiving core that's going to give you anything one-on-one. Darnell Mooney's probably the best you got, and he's not going to give you anything outside of these guys helping him out. So there's that. And then, Justin Fields is a developmental guy. I've been talking about it for a while. The situation you put him in, you're not helping him. And so we have and that's just offense. Defensive line wise, I talked about a little bit. We had Sanborn. We got rid of Roquan Smith. We stripped the roster down. We got the number 1 pick like we wanted. If not, we would have number 2 pick. So we got a high draft pick. We traded for assets. That's the plan. Tank, get assets. But there is something to be said about the psychological part of winning. There's something to be said about a coaching staff, a roster that has proven winners who know how to win. I don't care what you say. I honestly don't. The celebrations when you're down 30 but you get a first down, those types of things, and I could go on a long list. People like, you're a hater, blah blah, you're not fun, whatever. And these coaches, I no disrespect, Coach Prime and all that, we having fun, but football's the game. The game is football. It's not going to change. So I don't care what you say. That's the philosophy I have. When you have people that are more worried about that, you're not going to win. So when you say I'm going to strip down the roster, I'm bringing a bunch of 1-year deals, people that don't care, people that haven't won, and we're going to put it together just to get assets. Once we get assets, we're going to flip the culture. It's hard to do that. And everybody's going to blame Eberflus. Everybody's going to blame all them. And that's fine. I don't agree, but that's fine. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much a coaching staff could do. If it was me in those shoes, and because they won't say it publicly, but behind closed doors, they said, we're going to strip this roster down. We're going to get as much assets as we can for the future. We're going to lose, and we're going to build from there. I don't know as a coach how much I can do to really get our team into a winning mindset. And it's not even just the players, it's the coaches. Because Eberflus is going to have this think on him for this. People already calling him and his staff terrible. They need to all be fired. Do you really think, and this is my coaching bias, do you really think it's just the coaches? If you throw out a bunch of undrafted, unwanted, untalented, unneedy players and tell the coaching staff, a great coaching staff, to get them together, do you think they could do that? It's the same thing with quarterbacks. Daniel Jones, respect him, love him. I don't care what nobody say. He had the worst situation in the last 5 years. And so people throw him out there and be like, he sucks. How many quarterbacks that you love really think could be on the Giants with no Saquon, with your number 4 receiver as your number 1 receiver, with no real prospects and do great? You always want to judge a player individually in a team game. And that's the problem. You want to judge coaches in the team game. So to sit here and say Eberflus and everybody needs to be fired, they're terrible coaches, I'm not willing to say that. You can say I'm naive and all that, but I'm not willing to say that. What were they supposed to do when your first year you come in and Ryan Poles rips the roster apart? And I'm not knocking him for that. That is a path in the league that you can take. And so he took that path. We're going to rip this down, be bad on purpose, get high picks, and make assets and all that. But how easy is it to turn that into a winning culture? I would say it's darn near impossible. And I say that because there's teams with good rosters, with good continuity, and they can't turn it to a winner. So how do you expect somebody to turn it into a winner with no continuity and bad talent? So right now, I'm not going to make this an indictment on Eberflus and everybody, although the way short-term social media works, people are talking and crying, and they're probably going to get fired. But that just starts the cycle all over again of another problem. And now you have Ryan Poles and Eberflus. None of them drafted Fields. So you're going to bring in a group, a second group that didn't draft Fields. He's probably going to get fired and moved on. So it's an ugly web. Unfortunately, I'm not talking to a billion people. I'm talking to maybe 50, maybe. And so the social media and all the short-term reaction is going to do its thing. People are going to get fired, and we're going to be right back where we were. And I'm not saying keeping Eberflus for 10 years is going to be the trick, but it will help. And we're just in a situation where we don't truly know what the staff can do, especially with all the drama and turmoil. So that's it for me. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.